Hey, welcome back to another edition of Everything Football 62. I'm yours, Jonathan Big Tex Johnson, a.k.a. Professor Tex, a.k.a. Uncle Tex. All right, how's everybody doing today? Hope y'all enjoying the 3-day weekends for some of us and whatnot. A little dreary up out here in the low 50s here. It's supposed to be pretty warm here in May here in Northern Virginia, but it's otherwise, so it is what it is. But I wanted to because Kwame Brown is lit up. You know, I talked about this last week. He's lit up YouTube. You know, making dealing around with comments that Matt Barnes and Stephen Jackson, I believe that's the brother's name, and things were dealing around, with some of the guys in the media and stuff like that and whatnot. But he brought up the interesting thing about him and what he's saying, and this is why this is why this topic is important, and people miss the point. And I touched on it briefly last week, and it's like, well, let's define what is a bust. You know what I'm saying? Like let's really define what is a bust. Like I told you guys, it's like that's something that just kind of came along, over the past 25, 30 years or so, that term being used, mainly used for Tony Mandarich. I remember getting the Sports Illustrated and whatnot, and he's on there in incredible bulk, 6'6", 315. He's gonna change the game. He runs around with Guns N' Roses or whatever, or like Axl Rose and all of them, and this, that, and the third, and and all that kind of stuff. Bodybuilding. He's gonna make jokers forget about Vince Lombardi when he comes there. He's gonna do this. He's gonna do that. A lot of smack talk and whatnot and stuff like that. And things didn't work out the way it was supposed to work out. And he's considered the incredible bust, right? After 4 years in Green Bay, they just and whatnot. Guys like Brian Bosworth, considered bust and stuff like that. The biggest bust are Ryan Leaf and all these other different type of characters. And the list is endless, right? But let's define what a bust really is. Let's do this. The NFL, the average career for an NFL player, because what the NFL does in all these sports in reality, because you big up a certain amount of people and whatnot, and who gets all these props, the money, and all this other type of stuff. And people miss the point, I think, in a lot of cases. And one of the cases that you have to look at, so if the average NFL player is 3 years, right? Today, the average NFL player, their salary is $860,000 a year. Okay, think about that, right? So if you get somebody that, let's say, plays 3 years in the league, right? They play 3 years in the league, and they play in these 3 years in the league, right? That right there is almost $2.6 million that young man is made. Say he plays in that. So that's roughly, if he starts or plays or whatever, let's just say that's 48 games. Okay. So you're talking about someone in 48, in 48 games, right? And he's making $860,000 a year, 2.58, right at $2.6 million in a 3-year span. Now, that kind of money that's being made at that particular time, name the type of people outside of sports that make that kind of money. You're talking about guys as CEOs, CFOs, guys that run Fortune 500 companies. Probably they make a little bit more, but I'm like in that particular range, right? High six figures, okay, that make that kind of money, right? And the average NFL player plays 3 years and he racks that up. Rookie contract, I think it's something like $430,000 a year. If you want $435,000 a year, let's say he plays 3 years off of that rookie contract and he just plays 3 years, that's $1.3 million. Right, dude. That's that is as my father would say, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's nothing to sneeze at all. That's a nice chunk of change. compared to the outside world, when you go back out into the workforce, do you know what type of work or what type of job you would have, or the people that make that kind of money in that the quote unquote real world, everyday Joe Schmo, and when those are guys that are Fortune 500 companies, they're up there, big money and stuff like that. So, which brings me up to the title. So if that person just bottoms out, sometimes it doesn't happen. And see, the bust is a term that the media came up with. And this is where, like I said, what Kwame Brown was saying about these guys ripping these players, because then it gets personal, right? And that's one of the things, like I said, with my channel, I stick with what's on the field, right? That's why I want to stick on the field. I don't have time, all that other stuff. Some of these guys' backstories. They have specials on these guys' backstory. One of the main stories I always remember looking at, and it kind of sickened me. It was heartfelt, but at the same time, I didn't really need to know that about the whole Patrick Willis story. Him and his sister, a few years ago, remember they did the story on him and stuff like that. And his father was this, that, and the other. His mother was, it was crazy, right? And glad the young man got out there, made a hell of a career, one of the best linebackers for a 6-7 year run till he retired, and he'll probably be going in the Hall of Fame. He's not wanting to be a first ballot only because of the amount of years that he played. But Patrick Willis probably will be going into the Hall of Fame sometime or another. And the only reason why he's going in late, because he was a bona fide first ballot Hall of Famer, just off of what he did for like 6 or 7 years. He was the best in the business, bar none, right? So, and he leaves out and whatnot, injury, and then he was like, I'm done, right? So, and they're getting all these guys' backstories. I don't really care about hearing all their backstories and whatnot. It was like, it's the product, what they doing out there on the field, right? And so you start thinking about a bus and stuff like that or whatever, and get personal. Just on the field. If he didn't really get it done on the field, that's one thing. It was a time, say the 40s, 50s, and even 60s. Those terms wasn't used. Those guys, they played and it didn't work out. And them guys ended up being insurance salesmen, ended up working some, a job, because some of them guys, a lot of them guys had degrees, because that's back during the time guys went to college 4 straight years. You got a lot of these athletes now, a lot of these young brothers and whatnot coming out of broken homes and whatnot, and they go out there to go make their money, just like what Kwame was basically telling you. He's been basically taking care of his family since he was 14 years old. So you have to look at that. So like I said, the NFL, that's a job. So the NBA, as far as Kwame, that was a job. And that's a job he had for 12 years. So a lot of jokers don't hold one job for 2 years, 3 years, not alone 12 years. And then amass right at $70 million, right? That's a nice chunk of change, and the young and the brothers doing pretty doggone good, right? So was he really a bust, or he just didn't live up to the expectation that the press put up on him and put him in a box? Mind you, a lot of these guys that sit up there and on these shows and whatnot, these guys probably never even played high school ball, and they start having these terms that they use on these guys, or say derogatory things about them, when technically that's not what you're supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's a guy that's a co-worker that's not that great or whatever, this, that, and the other, there's no need. It's not about getting personal. Either they can do the job or they can't, or they're not that great at the job. However, his resume probably read that he could do this, that, and the other, but really don't get down to it. But he ends up working for the company for X amount of years and makes some pretty good money, then leaves on whatever terms that he ends up leaving. Right, he may end up getting fired or whatever, or quitting or going to another job, right? But at the same time, it's like that guy worked and made money and he took care of his family. That's the same thing. It's just that these guys start at age 20 or whatever, 20, 21, and play until they maybe in their early 30s or whatever. Some guys longer and whatnot. It is what it is. But so is that really a bust? You think about somebody like Brian Bosworth. Brian Bosworth is considered one of the greatest college linebackers that ever played the game, bar none. He gets into the league. Matt Millen basically broke this down and said, he wasn't a bust. He could play. His shoulders went out on him. He had arthritis or whatever in his shoulder. His shoulders was mush. So he couldn't do X, Y, and Z. He couldn't do all that. He played 25 games. He started and everything like that. Then the third year, 89, and that's when that was it. He said he made a hit or whatever like that. And he just felt like he was going to pass out because his shoulders, they were done. His shoulders were done. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing if you never even make it into the league. If they see what happens is it's a hype machine. And these guys hype these guys up. Now, some guys toot their own horn and stuff like that, go back to somebody like Bosworth, or either Tony Mandrich and guys like that, and then it doesn't happen. So, oh, man, you're not this. You should have did this, that, and the other. Bosworth probably could have been a Pro Bowl linebacker in the whole 9 yards, or some guy that sit up there and played 7, 8, 9, 10 years in the league and made a nice amount of money and was able to take care of his family and live good. That's not a bust. See, a bust is a joker who can't take care of his family, can't do this, can't do that, and just and does nothing for his family, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't, end up being a bum or whatever you want to call it and stuff like that. And you've had that in the sports arena as well as just regular life, right? So, what are these guys really a bust? Tony Mandrich, I mean, all the stuff behind him, yeah, I get it and whatnot, and all that. So then got on drugs, alcohol, and he basically was out the NFL for 4 or 5 years. Came back, played some more, played with a rookie Peyton Manning there in Indianapolis. He ended up being a good tackle and whatnot, but his shoulders again went out on him, and so he ended up retiring. Made some pretty good money off that rookie contract and whatnot, because when you get into the game, that game is a mental thing. By this time, it's all about mental. And you're the big man on campus from high school, college, but when it comes to pro ball, it becomes mental, because you're coming in there to take somebody's job. You're a 21-year-old fresh kid, and then you got some joker at 31 years old. You coming in there to take this joker's job. It's a whole nother mindset. It's a $1 billion business, and dudes do whatever they try to do whatever they have to do to try to stay on that field and do the things that they do, right? So our guys to sit up there and get in the league and play, and like I said, so if a joker played 3 years in the league and he's averaging $860,000 a year, or even $435,000 a year, is that really a bust? He played 3 years. That's the average lifespan of a football player. I can't really speak for the other sports, but for that sport, that brutal sport, 3 years. So if a joker walks away with almost $3 million, is that a bust for real? Now, when we want to get on the field, that's a different story. Yeah, my man, he ain't really doing this, he ain't doing that, this, that, and the third, or whatever. But at the same time, I say, so how many guys? I said, shit, I never made it to the NFL. There's tons of them guys never made it to the NFL. These guys made it to the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, made it to these different places. So their play might not be what you want it to be based on where they was taken at in the draft. But they end up playing 3 or 4 years in the league. So technically, that's not a bust. He made the league. How many guys can say that they made the league? It's not a lot of guys. It's a lot of guys that come in and out of that meat grinder, coming out of college, going into pro, and they don't make it. And we're talking about top-notch players. When you mess around and can't even make the team after being drafted first and second round, and you can't even make the team, and dudes that one of those high draft pick tackles, I can't think of the young brother's name, went to Tennessee, has all these kind of problems and whatnot. This joker's already out the league, and he was taken in the first round. He couldn't even cut it. That's a bust. That's a bust. He couldn't even cut it. He couldn't even get on the field, not long even stay on the field. So you look at it from that. Somebody that's played the game and then they go out because of injury and whatnot, that's not necessarily a bust. Now, you put the hype behind, like you take somebody like Deion Sanders, who basically took the playbook that he got for him, marketing himself, he got that from Bosworth. But Deion, he playing 13, 14, 15 years, however long he played, and is an NFL Hall of Fame and probably one of the best cornerbacks that ever did it, right? And whatnot. So, and it's still true, but it's like to sit up there and say, oh, guy, he's a bust, he's this, he's that, he's nothing, or whatever like that. If a joker sit up there and got some checks, or if a joker just played 6 years in the league at an average of $860,000, dude, that's a lot of money. And that's a nice nest egg to have once you walk away from the game, even if you're 25, 26 years old. You could put that up, buy a little crib or whatever like that, where you stay at, buy that, have land. One of your biggest overheads is either going to be rent, or your mortgage or whatever. You got a place, it's paid for, land is paid for. All you got to do is take care of taxes and all the other little nuances that you have when you have kids, wife, and all that other type of stuff. So is these guys really a bust? And why does it have to get personal with these guys? If the guy's no good on the field, fine, you can critique that. But to sit up there and try to sit up there and say a guy's a bust, and then you get derogatory about him and say things about him, and a lot of things with Stephen A. Smith, and that's why I've been turned off. I don't even watch ESPN. The only reason I have ESPN now is because when college football comes on, that's it. When college football comes on, because they have a lot of the games, ESPN 1, 2, and 3 and stuff like that. It's a plethora of games. There might be like 12 games I could damn near watch, along with the ones that's on Fox, CBS, or ABC. So it's tons of games that come on with ESPN. That's the only reason that I've been stopped watching ESPN. Everybody came up on ESPN, this, that, and the other, and all that. I don't watch the garbage because it's like, it's all this personal stuff. It's like, it's not necessary. And now it's so personal to the point where you got now fans and stuff with Russell Westbrook and whatnot. These throwing popcorn from guys spitting in the, I said like that. They feel as though they can disrespect these guys and take all that NBA shit, NFL shit, NHL, all that shit. These are men. Put the entertainment aspect of it down. These are men, because you ain't gonna pour no damn popcorn or talk to try to spit on this joker. And you sitting up there about 5'6", 170, 5'6", 150, 160 pounds. This joker 6'5", 6'6", 212 pounds. He'll whoop your ass. Just man on man shit. And they should have every right to do that, because that's my job. That's not who I am. And you can't treat me like that because you bought some bullshit ass ticket. Now, that's a nuance to that. I'm not going to get into that. Y'all pretty much know what that is. But, nah. To sit up there, say a guy's a bust, and the joker played 12 years, amassed $69, $70 million. That's not no bust. That's somebody that played in the league, that had to make a team after he might have wasn't what he was going to be, but end up doing what? End up amassing $70 million. Now that's somebody that's hit up that had a job for 12 years, made a lot of money, set that money aside, got land, got this, that, the other, and living a comfortable life, not dealing with nobody. But to try to dismiss this guy, the guys that sitting there saying dismiss him when their careers was basically like theirs, but you can't help who picks you and whatnot. They pick you as like a joker handing you some money. You can't get mad, get mad at the joker to sit up there and pick me. You want to get mad at Abe Poland, fine. They picked me when that player did what I could do. Now, it's a lot of nuances from coaching, not in the right type of system that fit what you were supposed to do, and you just ended up being a role player. How many guys can sit up there, how many jokers can sit up there and say they played 12 years in the league? In any league. Professional football at its highest level. That man can say that. Normal Joe Schmo that talking that shit, they can't say that. Stephen A. Smith can't say that. You can be critical of a guy's game, but you don't have to be disrespectful. Now, if he does crazy stuff, whatever, I've talked guys off the field do certain things. I said, man, y'all need to stop that. Work on your craft. And this guy got a job. He has a job, and he did his job for 12 years. There's a lot of people don't stay on the job 12 years. On one job for 12 years. Yet alone, you know what I'm saying? Yet alone, stay in the league that's competitive, and it's a meat grinder and pulling out people to take your job and do all this stuff. That man played it for 12 years. So you could say Tony Mandarich and whatnot. Now, even with somebody like Ryan Leaf, well, he cut his own throat to an extent. But even Ryan Leaf, because that was attitude, and Ryan Leaf could have still been playing he could have had a decade. He could have played 12 years in the league, and probably some of that was going to be as a backup. Because I don't think, from the mental aspect of the game and the maturation aspect of it, that's what kind of failed him. He had all the credentials. He just didn't have that. And when you're the big man on campus in high school and college, and all of a sudden the game ain't that, now everybody's caught up to you now. This is where grown men play it. They get checks and play this game. It's no longer a game just to be playing. Now there's money involved. Now the pressure is high, and a lot of guys can't take that. And Ryan Leaf could have easily came back in the game, but it was a mental thing with that cat, which is why he didn't play. He could have easily kept playing and just been a backup, second and third string backup, holding a clipboard and still sitting up there damn near bringing $1 million home a year. So, like I said, that's a term. Everybody's got to watch that term. Got to watch that term, because it's not, you know what I'm saying, and to be getting personal with it and stuff like that. I think that's why the brother Kwame he drew the line. So stop at the personal attacks. He said, dude, I actually played. So what are you talking about? It's not about trying to rip somebody down. This guy has a job. He might not be that good, or that you can say, well, that's why he's not playing, or this, that, and the other. His footwork is not good. His hands are not big. He can't do this. He can't do this. Well, that's on it. But to get personal, or like something to Stephen A. Smith, I wouldn't get this guy for a box and all this kind of stuff, or he's hot garbage or whatever, or make terms like Skip Bayless called old boy Chris Bosh Spice or whatever like that. I'm like, that's not necessary. Just say, I don't agree with him. I don't think he's that good of a player and whatnot, and move on and leave it at that. You have a right to your opinion. But to sit up there and to tear somebody down, just to tear somebody down to get ratings. And then when Stephen A. Smith comes on with his damn bloopers with him, just like I say that's weak. You know why? Because that guy can get the same other kind of films with him dunking and making shots in a row the same way you did that. So that's not doing nothing. Did that man take care of his family and still continue to take care of his family what he did in the NBA and kept it and didn't say anything to nobody until them guys got to messing with him? You can't say anything about it. So was he really a bust? And when you make it to the league in the NFL and you play like 3 years and you walk away with damn near $3 million, is that really a bust? Or did you do the very best that you could do and walked away, saved up a nice little stash of money, secured for your future, for you and your family, and just living and you might be just a regular coach at a high school. You've done good. So I salute any guy, anybody that's in professional sports that played that made it there, that made it to the show, as they say in baseball, that made it to the show. A lot of dudes, tons of guys never made it to the show, and you thought they were going to make it to the show. And he's got a lot of first rounders that never panned out, and they just didn't get it together because it just wasn't for them. But in actuality, even with that, they made it to the show. A lot of guys can't say that. There's a ton of guys sit up there in them shows and I'm talking about guys that never hardly even played, but I'm not talking about professional athletes now that's reporters or whatever and break down the game and stuff. I'm talking about just regular Joe Schmo dude up there talking that mess, and you talking about something, and you've never played you've never played in the NBA, you never played in the bigs, you never played in NHL, you've never done any of this stuff, and then you have a right to critique. That's fine because you might know the sport, but you don't have a right to really just call yourself to get personal and whatnot. And then when the guy opens up on your ass because he has nothing to lose, because it's like ain't nobody, I'm my own boss, and now you want to try to talk shit about him. And another players really shouldn't be saying shit about other players unless it got personal. And them guys got personal, try to discard him like he was nothing. So salute to any of them guys that sit up there and made the show on all levels of professional sports, professional men's sports and whatnot. Because a lot of us, tons of us, was never going to be able to make it. And for the ones that you thought that was going to make it, didn't make it. But for the guys that played 3 years in the NFL, and that's the average, salute to them cats, man. And that's not a bust in my yeah, you could use that term for a guy who has busted play, but there's no need to get personal and try to dog a guy because of that. Because it just, sometimes it just doesn't work out. But he can always say, I played in the NFL. It's a lot of us that can say never even sniffed the NFL and whatnot. So you guys smash that like button. Got any comments, leave them below. Talk about it. And you guys have a good one and whatnot. And like I tell you guys all the time, there's no GOAT, there's no greatest of all time as long as time is still going on. And like I tell you guys all the time, numbers don't lie and get emotional. People do. You have a good one.